I also think that what Donald Trump, just by his very nature, represented was the refutation of the whole system, and that in a way was a threat to them. And also the fact that they told everyone, well, look, we've laid out these rules, we represent the American people, we know what they think, they'll never vote for this guy. And then they voted for this guy. And now they all look bad because they told you this couldn't possibly happen. And the truth is, it's like this whole thing, man, it's like there's still like levels of irony and tragedy. It's something, it's like a Greek tragedy that the country so hated Clinton, Bush, Obama establishment. They failed so much of the country. They squandered the greatest country on earth. But the only thing we had that could actually beat them was Donald freaking Trump. Yeah. And everyone wanted him to be something else. Like the left wanted him to be Hitler. The right wanted him to be the savior. Caesar. Yeah, and he's just Donald Trump.
Well, so I think it was Cernovich who said, so the left wants him to be Hitler, the right wants him to be Caesar, and Cernovich said he's a Kardashian.
Yeah,
but
that's right. Think about that's a great.
The people looked at what they were given and they said, I'll take Donald Trump. Think about what that means. Now, I've long said the way I view the Trump presidency and why I thought it made more sense to support him was that you have the ivory tower, you have the establishment elites looking down and scoffing and laughing at the little people as they use the working class people's children as cannon fodder, and they're laughing. And then along comes Bernie Sanders, left populist, and Donald Trump, right populist, and they're banging on the doors. Well, they said, hey, Bernie, come on up. Don't worry, we'll be nice to you. And he goes like, oh, gee, they're letting me in. Woo-hoo. And then he joins on in. The Trump people broke the door down. Trump storms in, and he's like a raging bull, knocking things over, flipping tables, screaming at everybody, and they were freaking out. Oh, heavens, oh, and they're fanning themselves and running from the tower, and then they desperately needed to get it back. So I look at the Trump presidency as fairly chaotic. We had a really, really great economy in 2019, the best numbers of our lives. And I said this on a previous episode. Well, I think I asked Luke to try and coax him into saying it. Isn't Trump our greatest president of our lifetimes?
And I'm like,
you're like, but when you look at no new wars and you at least look at the attempts to withdraw our troops from some of these places, it is far from perfect. But you look at Clinton, Bush, and Obama.
So he's half as bad as the other ones, or he's half as good as he promised to be. But again, it's still, I think you brought up a good point. You bring up the bull analogy, but they also contained him in the lower level, so he couldn't get anywhere else up. And he didn't know. He raged, but he raged in the gift shop. He didn't rage in the actual positions that actually mattered. And in my opinion, he kind of like just put the establishment at half pace of where they were going anywhere.
He held them back.
And he held them back halfway, but the establishment was still moving in fairly close with him. And now they're going to go full steam ahead with Joe Biden. And I do think there's going to be new conflicts engaged all throughout the world, specifically also around Russia. They're going to try to they're going to bump heads with China, but I think Biden has too many ties to China to actually do anything legitimate. China is going to expand its territory. I think it's very fair to say that, but they're going to be butting heads very seriously in other places in the world, like Ukraine, Syria. Who knows? Turkey's also a very hot location that's in conflict with Greece right now. So there's a lot of potential for conflict all over the world stage. And I think a Biden administration is going to exploit that to the fullest extent because he has the top echelons of the military-industrial complex in his cabinet, in his administration. And at the end of the day, they're the ones who are going to be calling the shots. And they do call the shots.
I have to wonder about all of these people who constantly think there's this grand plan. Not necessarily the Q people, but the periphery to them as well, that are like, I can see what's happening. There are comments I see pop up where they're like, Trump didn't really concede. He said a new administration, which means he's replacing Pence. And it's like, dude, like Trump, I thought was way better than Hillary Clinton. It's not hard to be way better than Hillary Clinton. She was awful, like one of the worst politicians to ever run. And just this demanding and sickly individual and she wanted it. And we had a choice between the establishment over and over and over again, and there was an opportunity for a Trump, and he managed to pull it off.
Well, I mean, look,
Trump's far from perfect.
Far from perfect. But whatever criticism you could launch at Trump, and there's a lot. Donald Trump made it that we didn't have another Bush or Clinton. And for that alone,
president of our generation.
He should be saluted just for beating the Bushes and the Clintons and destroying those two evil, family organizations, criminal organizations. And look, I'll say this. I think Barack Obama was an absolutely horrible president. But you know what? Because of him, John McCain wasn't president. And oh my God, if you want to see a disaster, let John McCain have access to be the commander-in-chief of the military. I mean, we'd probably be in 5 more wars if he had been there. So now, Obama did pretty much get us in 5 more.
This is the main problem, though. Like, I think Trump operated in good faith when he got in. He thought that he was president now, and people were going to listen to him, and that he was going to have control and get to do the things that he wanted, fulfill his promises, end these wars. And he didn't realize he was walking into a gigantic machine, all gummed up with bureaucracy and red tape.
Okay, but that's on him. See, the problem.
No, of course. I'm not saying it's not.
No, but the problem with Donald Trump, okay, is that he doesn't know anything about anything. There's not one thing he's ever read a book about and knows something about it. He's got instincts. He's instinctually brilliant in many ways. But he banned critical race theory being taught to the military and in government organizations.
And through contracts.
But because 3 months ago he was watching Fox News and saw a thing about critical race theory and went, "What's this critical race theory thing? That sounds stupid. Let's stop doing it." He had no clue what it was up until that point. So that's the problem.
And at the debate, he couldn't define it.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I'll take it.
Yeah, well, look, I agree. It's still better than nothing, but it's kind of like, but dude, to rise to the level, to actually do what he could have done, the person he could have been in history, he needed to know like 3 things, and he knew nothing.
I think it's obviously hyperbole. He doesn't know anything. I think the dude's clearly successful, became president. He's very rich. And the problem was he entered government thinking it would work like a business. He thought he could just fire people. He couldn't do it. Yeah. He hired bad people. And the one thing he was famous for, firing people, he didn't do enough of. He hired people and then fired his own people when he should have been firing all these holdovers who are going behind his back, leaking information and sabotaging everything.
And he overspent. That's another thing. If he was running it like a business, the business is gravely in debt right now that our children's children are going to be paying for. And also, when you look at the people he surrounded himself with, the ones that he took advice from, I mean, Jared Kushner, the one who negotiated better weapons deals for Saudi Arabia. Ivanka, the lady who cried about the alleged chemical weapons attack in Syria that many investigations proved not to be true, that convinced him to bomb Syria, according to Trump's son, who admitted that this happened. I mean, come on. I mean,
now I gotta say, you're doing a lot of ragging on the guy. The Abraham Accords are amazing.
Yeah,
you don't think so?
No. Fair enough. I would just say I was actually going to defend him in that moment too. That I will say that one defense I'll give to Donald Trump for putting his family in these positions that they were not in any way qualified to be is that he really had no one he could trust, and they did try to frame the guy for treason for 3 years, and he had the entire deep state working against him. So I think he did want his family there because he's like, okay, well at least Ivanka's not going to be setting me up for
she set him up to bomb Syria.
But look yeah. for all the issues too, Jared Kushner helped negotiate these historic peace agreements.
Yeah.
Look, when
I think the peace agreements, to be honest, I like the sound of it. I think they're kind of overplayed. There's not really any meaningful peace between people who were not already allies. It's like, okay, you can
there's normalization of economies, new flights. Now planes from one Arabic country can fly over Israel. Look, it's not an easy process. So I remember when Donald Trump crossed the DMZ into North Korea, and he was heavily criticized for it. And they said all he was doing was endangering the country and negotiating with a dictator. And I'm like, dude, negotiations have to start somewhere. Yeah. If we get Bahrain and the Emirates and now you've got Morocco, and they're normalizing relations, that's the first step.
I agree.
And that's more than I can say for Obama.
But what happened with listen, you're absolutely right about the North Korea stuff. It was great that he did that. It was amazing. It was a great first step. And what happened with those trade negotiations? This idiot made John Bolton the national security advisor and sent him over there to blow the whole thing.
Yeah, and John Bolton sabotaged that peace deal.
Yes, he sabotaged, and that is on Trump.
Of course,
I mean who in the right mind would put this guy as
but this is another thing that
advisor?
People really need to think about. Donald Trump set up a peace deal that was almost identical to the same Iranian peace deal that he wanted North Korea to have. So he ended one peace deal, and he wanted another one that he unsuccessfully didn't get. And we're going to have a Biden administration that's going to do the opposite. And it's like they're playing with us. They're toying with us. Look over here. But on the other end, they commit something else.
As we can clearly see from these reports, assuming the Mitch McConnell one is true, Trump trusted way too many Republicans, thinking that they were going to work with him. And what they wanted was judges. And then they gave him bad info, bad people, and they just were waiting him out. And now I do believe they want to purge him and all of his supporters. But like you said, the people still love the man.
Yeah.
And I think, you know why? I think when you listen to him, I think Trump does want to help people. I just don't think he understands how government works.
Yeah, you might be right. I don't actually know what he wants. And I got to say, I'm starting to think more and more that he really just wants to help himself. But I will say that Donald Trump looked at an entire group of Americans who are just absolutely despised by the ruling elite. I mean, they hate these people. You don't have to watch CNN for more than 10 minutes to just gauge what they think of the average Trump supporter. They hate these people. Yep. They lecture them all day long. They don't care. As you pointed out, they use their kids as cannon fodder. Yep. They don't care that there's a drug. They barely even ever report on the drug ODs, on the suicide rate, on the life expectancy going down. These people have been completely screwed over by the empire, just completely forgot about. And Donald Trump looked at those people and said, you know what? I care about you. I want to bring your jobs back. I want to win for you. And that was enough. That was all it took because no one had ever talked to those kids before. It was like someone showing like the ugly girl in high school a little bit of attention. And she was like, I love you. Like, that's okay. You're my, I don't mean to insult anybody in that, but I think I just alienated Trump supporters and women all across I think I lost. I don't know who's left, but I'm just making the point that he just didn't hate them. You know, you'd see these pieces like on CNN where they'd be like, why do these evangelicals support Donald Trump? And like kind of on the surface, you could see what they're talking about. I mean, clearly the guy's not a devout Christian, but you know why they support him? Because he doesn't hate their guts, and you do.
And he eats steak with ketchup. Michael Moore made those same exact points that you were making right now.
Well, this is my favorite story. That I remember when Donald Trump went to this fancy restaurant and he ordered like this 30-day dry-aged steak, super fancy and expensive, well done with ketchup. And I watched the media mock and laugh. Yeah. And you know why that was so brilliant on Trump's part? Do you know what regular Americans saw when they watched those segments? They weren't mocking and laughing at Trump. They were mocking and laughing at you, the regular working class American who's got only a couple bucks to buy that garbage, steak from the supermarket that you cook it all the way through and you put ketchup on it because it tastes like crap.
Yeah.
So I remember when I was growing up, guess what? For the most part, we'd get, grocery store cuts for a couple bucks. We'd cook them well. We'd put ketchup on it because we weren't rich. Every so often, we'd save up, and my dad would come back with the filet mignon and be like, this is the good stuff. And he'd put a little garlic and salt on it, and we just ate it like it was, and it was so amazing. And so I knew when I saw that story what Trump was doing, whether he's all about expensive, well-done steaks with ketchup, or he knew, I'm going to speak to these people who have been kicked to the curb and insulted. And the media walked right into it.
Yeah. You
know what it really comes down to for me? The media is despicable. It is the press in this country. It is lies all day and every day, and I grew up with the war in Iraq, the lies from the media, the just blind trust of government, and it got us into these wars. And there was no accountability for these people, many of whom are still working. These politicians who voted for it still in office after 47 years, and that's why I say it's kind of funny to say that Donald Trump is the greatest president of my lifetime because he didn't vote for these things. He spoke out against them in his book. He did really poorly in hiring and he fumbled a lot, but he spoke to the people. He did a lot more than these elites did. He banned critical race theory, whether he knew about it or not. I liked it. And it was only in the past year or so when I was like, I like what I'm seeing right now. Yeah. I like the attempts at least to mock the establishment. You know what I really like?
I'm with you completely on that. But that was a great gift that he gave us. Just relentlessly mocking the corporate press.
You ever see the moment where he comes out and he's like, by the helicopter and the press all asking him questions. And he's like, we got a really great deal. Saudi Arabia is giving us billions of dollars for all these weapons. And the anti-war left, their jaws hit the floor like he just comes out and says, you're not supposed to admit this. Yeah. It's supposed to be, we're here to support, security and peace. And Trump's like, we're getting great money. It's great for the economy. And then when it came to Syria, when we left troops there to guard the oil fields, he just comes out and says it. He's like, we tried to get the troops out of Syria, but I guess they got mad at me, so we just left them there. They're guarding the oil. That's what they wanted. And I'm just like, tell the people.
But I think that's a big part of the reason why he was so despised. is that he is this guy that just is uncontrollable. And he blurts things out. Donald Trump can't keep a secret if he wanted to.
That's why we know there's no aliens.
But it's also why it scared the bejesus out of all of these people. Like Donald Trump, people wonder why, like John Brennan, for example, hated Donald Trump. You ever hear John Brennan on TV? You can tell it is a personal hatred that he has for Donald Trump. Well, listen, Donald Trump, when he was running in 2016, just blurted out, that Obama armed ISIS and created that. Now, he just blurts this out. He's just like, Obama created ISIS. That was all Obama. And they're like, what are you talking about? You can't say that. And he goes, no, Obama created ISIS. And now
Saudi Arabia did 9/11. Yes, he also blamed them for 9/11. And he said he was going to end the Federal Reserve.
No, he said a lot of these things. Now, John Brennan was the head of the CIA while they were knowingly arming Al-Qaeda in Iraq, also known as treason with a capital T. These are crimes that if you were prosecuted for, the punishment for treason, I believe last I checked, is death. Okay? So Trump is just out there blurting it out. And to Trump, he's like, I just said it. Now I move on. And now I'm going to talk about how great my crowd sizes are.
And he brings Flynn on.
Yeah.
But Brennan's sitting there like, what did you just say? You're not supposed to say this. And like people who talk about this are like I talk about this, you talk about this and stuff. But the president of the United States, with his 70 million adoring voters, don't just mention
And before that,
this.
it was totally ignored. I mean, we had whistleblowers, we had government agents, we had insiders, we had people on the ground that were confirming, showing videos, showing photos, showing documents of U.S. arms, munitions, weapons, trucks, going directly into the hands of ISIS, al-Nusra, and al-Qaeda inside of Syria to do regime change. And this was proven, but this was only talked about in the alternative press until Michael Flynn actually whistleblowed and released a lot of the information. Michael Flynn, of course, was brought in by Donald Trump, and Donald Trump was saying this on the public stage, and then we know what happened to Michael Flynn.
Yeah, they got rid of him pretty quick.
And this is where the Russian narrative comes in. He must be doing this because he's trying to undermine and damage this country.
But because a lot of people look at it on the surface and they go, oh, well, but it failed because they didn't get him, they got nothing off the Mueller report. There was no one went to jail for it. But no, it worked.
Right.
They boxed him in for 3 years. So Donald Trump was running on, look, let's make a deal with Russia. That way, we both have a common enemy in ISIS. Who cares if Assad is the president of Syria? Like, whatever, we'll just leave him there. It's worse when we overthrow these guys anyway. So we'll make a deal. We'll make a deal with Russia. We'll get out of Syria. And then, after hearing nothing but Trump-Russia collusion on repeat every day for years. Well, now Trump can't make a deal with Russia because if he went and made a deal with Russia, well, then that's proof that he's colluding with Russia. So it worked perfectly.
And it's all about the Qatar-Turkey pipeline. No, I shouldn't say all about. It's a large component. Are you familiar with it?
Yeah, I've read a little bit about it.
So there was a report from The Guardian going back to, I think, 2012, where they said that a report in 2009 from the U.S. said we wanted to have boots on the ground in Syria because Bashar al-Assad was blocking our access to building this pipeline. Lo and behold, everything you guys just talked about. Remember that photo of the truck ISIS had, and it's got like, what was it? That truck that had the phone number for like a Michigan auto mechanic on it. And I was like, how did that truck get there? That's weird.
Did you ever hear
as well.
Did you ever hear the tape? I don't remember. I'm not sure if it was a hot mic or like a secret recording, but there's the tape of John Kerry talking about the rise of ISIS. It's really interesting. He's talking about it. So he comes in, I guess was it 2013 he became Secretary of State. So it was after Hillary Clinton left. And he's talking about, so this is kind of, right as it's happening. And he's talking about, and he's basically just saying, quite frankly, on this tape, I think he doesn't realize he's being recorded. And he's going, he goes, look, we saw it. We saw the rise of ISIS coming, but we thought we could control it and use it to bring Assad to the negotiating table. So you got to understand with a lot of these things, it's tremendous hubris that they think everyone's their pawns. And then, because look, it was not part of the plan for ISIS to then go invade Iraq, have the Shiite army that we trained bail, strip off their uniforms and hand over all the stockpiled weapons to them. Man. That wasn't part of the plan. So they just think that they can control everybody in the same way that like the Black Lives Matter rioting smashing up that CNN building wasn't part of the plan. You're like, wait, you guys weren't supposed to do that. You were supposed to just go over here. But people are not pawns, and it's not always easy to control them. So the whole thing just got away from them.
Well, they created the cultural situation in Iraq, especially with the second Gulf War, after they got rid of a lot of the Hussein Ba'athist loyalists that they said no longer could serve in the new military. So a lot of those fighters joined up with more radical Sunnis, and they were enabled to start this larger group that later became known as ISIS, directly because of policy decisions by the Bush administration, specifically making sure that this protocol was followed. It led to tremendous amounts of human suffering. I mean, people were tortured on camera with amazing production that was terrifying the entire world. The Western world has been terrified by ISIS.
If you start adding up the numbers, we're getting to Hitler, Stalin level numbers.
But
I mean,
this
you're
is the
talking
thing.
1 million in Iraq, 500,000 in Syria. It's going to be 1 million in Yemen.
But this is the thing. One thing I need to bring up here is because we had ISIS literally dominating the headlines. Everyone was always talking about them. Everyone in the Western world was scared about a terrorist attack happening in their city because of them and their ideas. They had the direct fingerprints of all the upper echelons of the U.S. intelligence agencies, Israel, Saudi Arabia, working with them in cohesion. And then all of that just magically kind of went away under the presidency of Donald Trump, who from the information I'm getting, stopped funding them, stopped supporting them.
That was, you want to give Trump credit for something, that was one of the first things he did.
Yes.
He ended the CIA program to arm the anti-Assad rebels.
Yes.
And almost immediately after that, ISIS just stopped being a problem. And there was also, and they also fought them. I mean, it was like the Russians were fighting them, and our troops were fighting them.
Well, the Russians were exposing how
And the
they were
Kurds
selling
too.
oil, Syrian oil, to Turkey.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. We do the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., so come back to check us out when we go live. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, hit the notification bell, and we are also available on all podcast platforms for free if you want to listen to us there. Thanks for hanging out, and we will see you all next time.